Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Jalen Brunson may be small, but he had wide shoulders to carry the Knicks in Game 5. Also, Caitlin Clark arrived on the WNBA scene and set the wrong kind of record in her debut. Plus, the Wolves tried to get back on the defending champs.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
After dropping 2 games in a row, Jalen Brunson saw his ragtag group of New York Knicks in front of Madison Square Garden, pulled up the convertible and said, "Get in, losers. We're winning Game 5. It was a Herculean effort from Jalen. 44 points in a 121-91 win, the pivotal Game 5, and the Knicks take it. Gavin Shaw from Locked On Knicks joins me now. And Gavin, this was a comfortable Knicks win, something we haven't really seen in the postseason so far. How did you react to it?
Well, you literally hear the alarms going on outside my house. So you know that New York is shocked. A couple of people fainted. We don't know how to handle success, at least not this much success. 121-91 over the Pacers. Just an extraordinary bounce back for the Knicks. I thought it was a top 3, if not the best half of basketball I've ever seen Jalen Brunson play. Maybe not quite some of the stakes that these second halves have had, but in a way it was, because Indiana just took it to the Knicks when they were on the road and punched them in the mouth over and over again. Jalen Brunson in particular playing through that injured foot, just did not look like himself. Aaron Naismith ate his lunch, and Brunson got revenge and more today. I mean, literally just dropping Naismith on one of those layups, torturing Andrew Nembhard every single time he got him in the first half. When the Pacers just said, screw this, and tried to double him, I counted 5 for 5 for 12 points on those possessions, just extra passes, open shots, total team effort. Isaiah Hartenstein tying a Knicks record for offensive rebounds in a playoff game. Deuce McBride, excellent two-way play. Josh Hart was back to his usual self. It was about as well as this version of the Knicks could play.
And they got huge contributions off the bench. You mentioned Alec Burks. That was one that sticks out to me, Gavin, because he had 18 in this one, 20 and 14 in the 2 games prior, and had just been they just dusted the cobwebs off, and he came right in and gave them buckets. And it does kind of make you wonder, Tibbs plays this ultra tight rotation. Couldn't some of these guys, Deuce McBride included, have been playing a little bit more? Did it have to be Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart giving you 45 minutes a game?
No, I mean, and look, we were asking for it a little bit in the Sixers series too. It would have been nice to see Burks get some run then, even though he really, really struggled after the trade in the regular season. So that one we weren't too upset about. There were times where it would have been nice to get Deuce out there more, and we were calling for a Brunson, Deuce, Dante lineup. But you know what? Tom Thibodeau, he rides his guys hard, and it's hard to blame him with Josh Hart, because he's just such a tone setter on both ends of the floor. Obviously, you're getting a better version of him if he was playing a few less minutes, but until last game, I mean, Hart's been up to the task, so it's hard to punish him too much. This is reality when 4 of your 5 highest paid players are in the bench in street clothes.
How do the Knicks do this where this is the playoffs? It's hard to out-effort anyone in the playoffs, and yet a 53-29 advantage in the rebounding game, and you're getting major contributions from Josh Hart, who's 6'5", playing power forward out there at times. How are the Knicks still doing this?
I think anyone who's ever played pickup before knows the feeling of just going to a park and playing a team and just being like, you guys are playing way too hard. This is stupid. We're going home. And that's exactly what it is with the Knicks. Just every single game where they, there was a play, I think it was in this Pacers series, game 2, where Josh Hart just literally batted the ball to himself 3 different times before finally knocking it to someone else when he was sure it was away from the Pacers. And it's just a group of guys who are a little unhinged, have a few screws loose. Perfect for Tom Thibodeau, because he has that too. Perfect for a New York crowd where most of the people probably have a few screws loose. It is the ultimate New York basketball team. And look, Indiana was winning that battle the last 2 games. So it finally went away for the Knicks a bit. They had a few days off. That game 4 was essentially a day off for the Knicks. They took advantage. Yeah. They brought that force and landed just enough punches to pull away in this one. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for them in game 6. We're going to get back to that. That drama that might just cause my heart to go out a few years earlier than it should. But you know what? I'll take the risk at this point.
The interesting thing about that, and I understand why you would say that, but when you look at these numbers, there wasn't anything fluky. Like, this wasn't some outlier shooting like when we saw Miami beat Boston and they have an all-time shooting performance. That wasn't this. In fact, the Pacers shot better from three-point land than the Knicks did. This was effort. This was Jalen Brunson playing awesome. This was Isaiah Hartenstein, 17 rebounds, Josh Hart. Like, this is the stuff that the Knicks have been doing all year in a lot of ways. I know it was a blowout, but it did in a weird way seem like it was sustainable just because this is how they've done this all year.
Yeah, it was, I mean, Indiana did exactly this to them in game 4. So it was just a complete and total reversal. And it was the one benefit of all the injuries the Knicks were dealing with the regular season. Like, they are super used to playing shorthanded. That the starting lineup they went with tonight was dominant over the 8 or so games that it played, like has a lot of shooting, and it worked so well tonight because of the offensive rebounding and because, I mean, just a total flip in terms of not only their effort defensively, but their execution defensively. Like, Tyrese Halliburton, like, over and over again, the Knicks were losing the closeout war, and like they were having flybys and the Pacers were getting open shots. Like, Deuce was totally under control and just spooked Halliburton out of shooting 3 or 4 times in the first half. And I think that carried over to the second. I mean, I know we're running a little over, Pete, but what did Tyrese Halliburton finish with in this game? He took a total of 9 shots while Jalen Brunson was able to get off 35. Yeah. Like, that's your ball game. It wasn't 9 shots because other guys were wide open. Like, he was spooked because of the way the Knicks were playing him. I'm sure he's going to be much better next time out, but it was just a two-way picture-perfect effort from the Knicks.
Stay up to date on the New York Knicks all year by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Knicks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, Caitlin Clark has arrived. Before we get to that, Aaron Nola blanked the Mets. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Looking at who's favored to win the WNBA MVP this year, A'ja Wilson gets the top spot. FanDuel has the odds at plus 100 for Wilson to win the MVP. Breanna Stewart, the only other player with odds better than 10-1. She is plus 750. Caitlin Clark has the third best odds to win MVP, as FanDuel has her at 10-1. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff spot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Braves were all over the Chicago Cubs.
It is incredibly rare for the Braves to score in the way that they did in this one, to put all those runs on the board, 6 runs in 1 inning. We just haven't seen a lot of that here in 2024, but perhaps a sign of things to come for both Olsen and this Braves offense. The big night that he had obviously helped power the Braves lineup, but Chris Sale on the mound again with a tremendous showing. Jake, this continues to be, I think, a renaissance, if you will, for Chris Sale, who the number one thing that everyone wanted to know, and I'm sure Chris Sale wanted to prove, is he's healthy in 2024, and we're seeing the results of that.
The New York Mets managed exactly 0 runs against Aaron Nola and the Phils on Tuesday.
Absolutely incredible, baby. How about that? I don't care that it was the New York Mets. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's the Mets. It was the Mets. Okay, I don't care that it was the New York Mets. I care that the Philadelphia Phillies have used, 12, 13 pitchers over a 2-game span, 2 separate 10-inning ball games, and you needed your pitcher to go out there and say, hey, you know what? Give me 7 innings, Aaron Nola. I'll push for 8. Give me 8 pitches, Aaron Nola. But you know what he does? Complete game. Everybody in the bullpen, take the rest of the day off. I got you. And when I say I got you, I mean I got you. And today, Aaron Nola had the Phillies bullpen's backs. He even had the Phillies backs when they weren't hitting with runners in scoring position, which has become, fortunately, an abnormality of this season. But Aaron Nola gets the win. He improves to 5-2, completely and utterly dominating.
And the Houston Astros tried to get anything going against the Oakland A's.
What a game. If you would have told me that we would have a starting pitcher in Ronel Blanco ejected, that we would have 9 strikeouts given to the Oakland Athletics by Astros hitters, and we were going into extra innings, and you would have said, did we win that game? I would have said unequivocally, no, we didn't win that game. But guess what, kids? We did win that game. That's right. So Brian McTaggart, during the game, before the game ended, he put this out. He said the Astros, when scoring at least 5 runs, are 14-1. When scoring 4 or fewer runs, they are 2-24. Well, now they're 3-24. So there you go.
Caitlin Clark made her WNBA debut on Tuesday and did something we have never seen before. She had the most turnovers ever in a WNBA debut, did have 20 points as well, and the Indiana Fever fell to the Connecticut Sun 92-71. Talia Goodman from the Next joins me now, and Talia, it was a tough night for Caitlin. As big a star as she was, as someone who has seen every defense in college basketball, she saw a different level of physicality and athleticism in this first game. What did you see?
Yeah, just that pretty much. I mean, the players who were double teaming her were bigger, they were stronger, they were more experienced, and she wasn't used to that. And she knew that coming in, that was going to happen. She said it post game that that's what she was expecting. Aaliyah Boston told her that too, right? But it's different when you're going up against it in real time, and we saw that. And she struggled early, right? She didn't score her first points until about halfway through the second quarter, and it was tough. She struggled for a while, but as she kept going, obviously she finished at 20 points, so you could see her visibly get more comfortable as the game was going on. But like you said, I mean, that record 10 turnovers was not great. Some of them were not her fault, I will say, but she struggled. She struggled on the defensive end. She struggled finishing. She struggled in a few areas, and you could see flashes of, the college Caitlin Clark, but there were flashes of a rookie too, which makes sense.
Yeah, I think, we saw her tame almost every challenge in college. And so it'd be easy for her to expect to just come into the NBA and take the league by storm.
Yeah.
That's not usually how it works. And that's okay, right? Like we've seen all-time great players come in and have those kinds of struggles. We've heard, Diana Taurasi talk about the adjustment period that's coming, of course, walking back some of the stronger language that she used before that. But when you look at what do you think clicked in the second half? Because it did feel like she found a little bit more of a rhythm. The 3-ball started to drop in a different kind of way, and she never stopped being aggressive.
Right. I think she was just able to read the defenses a little bit better there and just find some sort of confidence, right? Because it did take her a while she got 2 early fouls, and that'll kind of knock you down a little bit, right? And she was benched. She kind of got herself together a little bit after that point, and it did still take a while, but you saw her hit some threes. She got a little bit more confident as those were going in, and that's how she was in college too, right? Like there were days where she wasn't hitting those, and you could see like a lack of confidence there, and that happens with every player. It's not just Caitlin. It's any rookie in this league too. And I think like what you said, like you're not just going to come into the WNBA and take the world by storm like you did in college. And I think it's silly to expect that of Caitlin. And I think she'll get there at some point. It'll take a little bit of an adjustment period. It will, and I think that's what fans have to expect going forward.
One of the things that we saw her excel at at Iowa, and it's something that I don't think the casual fan gave her enough credit for, was her passing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We saw a number, though, of turnovers in this game, off passes, pick and roll coverages. The Sun did a lot of different things to disguise the coverages. They would blitz some, they would hedge on some.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that she wasn't more comfortable as a facilitator, or was this just all part of the learning curve here?
I think it's part of the learning curve. And I think it also, this is interesting because I just watched Full Court Press, the documentary that just came out about Caitlin and Camila Cardoso and Kiki Rice, right? And one of her teammates was talking in that about how she's a phenomenal passer, right? And sometimes her teammates just aren't ready for it. Sometimes they're just not ready for her court vision. And I think that's a little bit of what we saw tonight. It's also just her getting used to it, right? It's a little bit of a combination of both. And I think we'll see that. She does have that elite court vision and that high IQ, and that's not going to go away, right? She still has that. That's still there. It's going to come. It goes back to that adjustment period and getting used to that chemistry with her teammates too.
They also needed to do a better job of getting stops, because one of the great things that she is an outlet passer. She will push the pace. And if you're not getting stops, you can't rebound and go. And so that's just something that as a team, they're going to have to do better so that they can maximize this great skill that she has.
Right. It'll take time. And I don't think anyone should have expected the Fever to be on top of the league right away. So I think
they have the number one pick for a reason, right?
Exactly. 2 years in a row. So it's not like they're expected to be this powerhouse just because they got Caitlin Clark, or at least they shouldn't be expected to be that. There are these veteran teams in the league that are going to be better than them. And, the Sun is one of those teams, as we saw tonight.
Stay up to date on the WNBA all year by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Women's Basketball on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Wolves faced a stiff test in Game 5. The T-Wolves aren't supposed to beat Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. So Game 5 in Denver was Minnesota playing with house money, right? Our Locked On Wolves postcast host breaks down the game.
The Wolves are headed back to Minnesota down 3-2. And at halftime, this felt like a winnable game. It was, Ant had barely scored. Cat had dinged his knee up early. There was tons of foul trouble up and down the roster. Jamal Murray hadn't gotten going. And the Wolves were only down, I think they were down 6 at halftime. And it felt like the game was there for the taking. How many times this year have we seen the Wolves have a big third quarter, come back from a rough first half, and flip on a switch? And it seemed like there was a shot they could do it. There were a couple of mini runs in the second half, but then Nikola Jokic happened. And I don't know where else to start without just acknowledging just how incredible of a game Nikola Jokic had. Obviously, the newly minted 3-time MVP, just an incredible game from Joker.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, for him to put up what he did, he put up 40 points on 15 to 22 shooting. He took just 3 3-pointers en route to scoring 40 points. He was 13 of 19 inside the arc, made 8 of his 9 free throws, and the kicker, 13 assists and 0 turnovers for Nikola Jokic. And the Wolves tried just about every single combination of defenders to put on Jokic. They had Towns guard him with Rudy Gobert sagging off Gordon. They had Reed doing the same thing with Gobert sagging off. They had Anderson doing the same thing with Towns. I mean, literally any possible combination of those 4 guys guarding Jokic with another guy spying him. And nothing worked. I mean, Nikola Jokic made so many tough shots. It feels like the last 2 games have just been, complete progression to Nikola Jokic's shot-making mean after games 1 and 2. Frankly, he missed a lot of shots that he normally makes, especially in that short mid-range area that he was just cash money from tonight. And then obviously just targeted Rudy Gobert over and over and over and over again. Anytime Gobert was on the floor, he forced a switch until he got Gobert on him, and feels like damn near every single time those 2 guys were matched up one-on-one. Even if Gobert played excellent defense, it did not matter. Jokic just found a way to make tough shots after tough shots. And, so much to the point where the Timberwolves in that first and third quarter and the second halves of those quarters got Naz Reid in there for Rudy Gobert to try to throw a more aggressive defensive look with burlier bodies at Jokic until the end of the quarter, and then get Gobert back out there to start the second and fourth quarters in the non-Jokic minutes. And it was just a real shame that the Wolves weren't able to find a way to corral Jokic, because their second and third guys didn't really play all that well. Murray had 16 points on 14 shots, wasn't really that much of a factor. Michael Porter Jr. had 6 points on 2 of 10 shooting. Again, has not really been much of a factor in this series. But yeah, I mean, again, the Nuggets made 32 shots inside of 14 feet. Even when Jokic wasn't the one scoring in the paint, others, especially Aaron Gordon, did an awesome job of cutting off of him to get inside into the paint, into that little short mid-range area, and make all these little floaters and little jumpers. it just completely destroyed the Timberwolves defense. I mean, we were joking before we went live, that Jokic just kind of makes you go through all 5 stages of grief, and that, he's just an incredible player to watch. And this was arguably one of the best playoff performances he's ever had. And for a guy that's now probably a top 10 player of all time, just unbelievable to watch him go to work.
And finally, hiring members of the media who are former players to become coaches isn't rare. You followed that, right? Hiring members of the media to become coaches and letting them continue their radio show is. That's exactly what Wisconsin Green Bay is doing. Doug Gottlieb will become the next head coach of UW Green Bay and will still remain the host of his daily radio show. Will he be an impartial interviewer when he talks to himself about the team? Time will tell. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports today, can the Mavs break the time? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video